Oh, what a mess.
If you're like me, you've always got an eye out for some interesting virtual reality games to play. And I have a title to share with you today. Onward. Okay? This is a first-person shooter. It's designed, though, not just like a traditional first-person shooter. It's designed to be realistic. And I'll elaborate a little more later on in this game review. But it's designed to be a realistic first-person shooter, wartime environment, ground-based assault. It's 100% multiplayer. So it's 4 against 4 multiplayer. From what I've read, they've got plans for more. Really interesting stuff. So just some quick facts about the game. It's developed by Downpour Interactive. Downpour Interactive is really a one-man band. Okay, so I think I reached out to the developer to learn more about how the graphics were done. My opinion, it's based on Unity assets. Maybe some of it's done by Scratch, but that doesn't matter. Dante Buckley is the person who heads up Downpour Interactive. Kudos to him, because my understanding is this is his first major foray into video game development, and it's really polished stuff, and we'll talk about that a little later on. Onward supports both the HTC Vive as well as the Oculus Rift with touch support, provided you're going through the Steam VR platform. So just some additional facts. This is definitely a room scale / standing game. It's not for the seated. As far as the goal of the game or how the game is played, there's really one goal, and that goal is to capture a defending map point. So there's a computer at the other end or a console at the other end, and you have to enter the code in just the right way to capture the spot, and then you've won the game. The other way to win the game is, if you're team against team, is taking out the enemy. Each person gets a single life in a round. So if you take out all the enemy soldiers, you've effectively won the game. Now, the closest comparable I'd say is perhaps Battlefield, because this is a multi-class type game. So the classes are rifleman, automatic rifleman, specialist, and a designated marksman. So the designated marksman is like a sniper. Now, what makes Onward unique? What makes it stand out against the rest? Well, first off, this is a game that definitely has to be played in virtual reality. It's not something you could play through a traditional console or mouse and keyboard. This has to be played in virtual reality. It's extremely social and team oriented. So when you're playing the game, first off, there's a lobby where you meet the other team players and you talk to each other a little bit between rounds or while you're waiting for the round to finish. But also, as you're playing the game, you're collaborating with the other players. You're spotting who's out there, where are they, keep an eye out, hopefully defending each other and ultimately winning the game. Something that I thought was very unique is it's very focused on the small details. Okay, so when I'm talking about the small details, I mean like little things as to how you reload your gun or how you pull out your tablet or how you use a syringe. It's not where you press a single key to prone. You have to physically prone. Like everything is designed to be as realistic as possible. So this is what I really liked in the game. First off, the graphics, as I mentioned before, professional grade. I mean, you turn it on, you start playing, and you look around, and the environment is definitely well put together. I think a lot of it may be based on Unity assets or other assets that could have been purchased, but it doesn't matter. The game is well put together. Now, as far as the maps are concerned, there's several to choose from, and different maps have different characteristics that make them interesting. So you could be playing in a suburb, for example, and you're going through houses, room to room, and you're defending points. Or you could be in a subway station, or you could be, in a nighttime environment requiring night vision. So the maps are well thought out, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come. Now, another thing I really liked, I mentioned that this is definitely a virtual reality game. This has to be played as though you're in the scene. So, an equivalent game, if you were playing, let's say, a Battlefield game or Call of Duty, if you wanted to prone, you press the key on your keyboard and you physically prone, which means that you get on your knees. In this game, you physically have to get on your knees. You literally have to sit down. You could actually go right down to your belly if you choose to. It's a very physical game. Okay, so it's not for people that just don't want to get dirty. You really have to prone physically and peer through windows and the whole thing. So you play it as though you're in the scene itself. Team play, as I mentioned before, very important. I really like that characteristic. Unless you're working as a team, unless you're speaking with each other, you're not going to have, you're far less likely to be successful. Another thing I liked, and a lot of thought was put into this, was the weaponry itself and to how it's handled. It's designed to be handled like the real thing. So let's say I have a machine gun, or usually, so you hold it literally like a machine gun. So you got the forearm and the back, and you got the trigger, but that's not enough. What if you want to reload your weapon? Well, you don't just press the R button to reload your weapon. No, what you have to do is you have to press your tracking button, and then the clip loosens. You may have to pull the clip out, or depending on the weapon, may just fall out on its own. Then you've got to put another clip in, so you reach for your waist, you put your clip on, but that's not enough. Then you have to pull the bolt back, depending on the weapon, to prime the clip. So it's, every little detail that, has to be, was thought of. So it's not a simple thing where you press a button to get the right weapon. You have to reach for things in certain areas, and everything is handled as closely to the real thing as possible. Also, another thing is everything is very strategic. Okay, so if you're going to go in, I mentioned earlier that you may have a map that's a nighttime map, so you may need night vision. So you have to pull the night vision down to see it, or you may have to equip your character with the night vision, or maybe there's areas where you have to cross a big chasm to get to the other side. Well, if you do that on its own, you're very vulnerable because everybody could see you. So you may have to put down a smoke bomb, so that you've got this big, pillow of smoke that it's more likely that you'll be able to get across. So everything is strategic from getting point A to B and ultimately winning the game. I mentioned the vehicle, but I mentioned loading guns and handling guns, and there's other, small details as well. Like, for example, every time you start the game, I wouldn't call it your rally point, but what you're ultimately trying to get to, or your destination, could change. Like you want to, as I said, you want to put a code into an opposing computer or an opposing bomb or whatever it is. You need to know where it is, or you ultimately need to know what you're defending. So because people could be coming towards you. So what do you use to do that? Well, you have a computer tablet. How do you get the tablet? Well, you've got to reach to your back and pull it to the front, and you got to look where you're at. And of course, with the tablet, it doesn't just tell you, where you ultimately want to go or what you ultimately want to defend. As you play, as people see the enemy, you start getting details as to where your teammates are, hopefully where the enemy is, and hopefully have enough information to work with. Night vision, I think I mentioned this before. Again, you don't just press the button to turn it on. You literally have to reach off the top of your helmet, pull it down, and you get night vision. Then you want to switch back, you got to pull it back up. So again, there's a lot of physicality to this game. Using your radio, I thought this was a nice touch. So you have to remember, when you're playing the game, when you're talking, people can hear you in earshot, including the enemy. Okay? But what if you only want to communicate with your teammates and they're on the other side of the map? Well, you've got a walkie-talkie. So you have to press the button on your chest and go, I see a guy over there, just be aware of it. But again, there's that physicality to it. Scopes. This was interesting. Not good at it at all, but nonetheless, when you get different weapons, you could choose the type of scope. Sometimes they call it a holograph scope, or a laser sight, or you could choose the magnification. So as you're handling your weapons, you could, you physically look through the scope as well. And so I thought that was very interesting. That was a nice touch. Now, these are things that I didn't like, things that I struggled with. First off, okay, so this is something that it's not the fault of the game developer. This is, any and every video game that is using this type of locomotion is going to face this problem, and that's motion sickness. Okay, and it's not so much about, you know, motion sickness that you feel ill. In this case, what happens is when you move around, okay, yeah, you could physically walk around the environment, but really you've got to walk and sometimes run from place to place to place to place. So the way you do that is through your trackpad or moving your hands a certain way, and your virtual character moves, okay? But even though while your virtual character is moving, you know, from a first person point of view, you're not. So you're seeing, you know, in your head mounted display, you're seeing the character moving, but you're physically not, and there's a disconnect there. And it's happened a few times where I've, you know, for an instant or two, you know, I felt like I was going to fall. Like I felt, oh yeah, I'm losing my balance. And that's because there was that disconnect. Now, as you play the game, all right, as you get used to it, that's going to be less and less until you don't even notice it anymore. But you know, be aware that when you play this, and based on this style of locomotion, you are going to experience that disconnect, that you know, brief motion sickness. Another big problem, okay, and you know, it's just perhaps just the nature of the game, is there is a steep learning curve. This isn't a game where you're just going to jump in and, you know, or, you know, chain down the enemy and you're the hero of the game. Unless I'm the exception to the rule, that's not going to happen. Okay, so there's a very steep learning curve to getting proficient at this game. Another thing that I've been struggling with is I mentioned that when you hold your weapon, you could be one-handed. Okay, but really it's best to hold it with two hands so you could better aim it. It's more secure when you shoot the weapon. But the catch is, holding it from the rear at the trigger point is easy enough. But the foregrip, I find that it's so easy that it gets disconnected, and it's very frustrating. So you have a choice. You could either have, you know, in this case with the HTC Vive, there are these, you know, these gripping buttons that you use to hold it. Or another option is it detects it by proximity. And if you're close enough to that area of the gun, it will automatically hold on. It doesn't matter what I do. I find that it lets go, or if the length isn't quite right between your hands and the gun, it disconnects. And I don't know. For me, I found it very frustrating. If there was a way that they could perhaps just keep it that, you know, you're either secure or you're not secure, and not be so tied up into the exact distance, because for me, it was very frustrating. Now, speaking of the word frustrating, okay, I really suck at this game. Okay, I mean beyond suck at this game. I mean unless you've played this a really long time, okay, and you know every little intricacy, it is definitely going to be a struggle. Okay, just today I was getting footage of the title and I'm like, holy cow, I've played this over 8 hours. Okay, over 8 hours. And I hadn't actually killed anything. Okay, I hadn't actually killed any enemies. Actually, it's worse than that. I stand corrected. I did kill one, but what happened was he was already down as a wounded individual, and he actually said to me, "You're not going to kill me, are you?" And I'm like, yeah, actually, I needed the credit. So really, as a game, if you're not used to playing this way, or you haven't invested the time, or you just don't get it, it's going to be a very, very frustrating game. So here are some quick tips. I followed them. It didn't necessarily help me, but maybe it will help you. First, definitely there are tutorials, okay? So there are video tutorials that show you all the little intricacies. Watch them, okay? Invest the 30 minutes. You know, actually, some of the videos are only 8 minutes, but nonetheless, watch them, because hopefully it will save you some or a lot of frustration later on. It took me an hour and a half before I finally figured out how to reload my gun. You know, imagine you're shooting the gun, you're out, you put your clip in, and I had to go online to figure out, oh, holy cow, I've actually got to pull the boat to prime the clip. You know, so that was a lot of wasted time just trying to figure out how to reload the weapon. Another thing is, unfortunately, I have a hardwood floor here, and there's a lot of kneeling, you know, sometimes getting onto your belly and going on your knees. I would strongly recommend either playing on a carpet, or maybe look at getting, you know, knee pads, just anything to make it that you're not going to hurt yourself while playing this game, because I could see that getting to you. I know it gets to me. So final remarks. I think this is a great game. I think it's got a lot of potential. It's extremely impressive. It's beyond impressive that it was just put together by one guy. I mean, like, congratulations on that. It's well thought out. People are obviously having a lot of fun with it. Some more so than others, but all the same, very impressive stuff. But I need to highlight this, Onward. It's not for everybody. If you're really to enjoy the game, you're going to have to invest a lot of time in it before you become proficient. As I said, I played over 8 hours already. I haven't actually killed anything, and I really doubt I'm the only one in the world who's like that. So think about that. But it's if you've got the time, you can make the commitment. I think you're going to get a lot out of this title. So my final grade on this is 8.5 on 10. Well deserved. Congratulations, and hopefully I'll see you on the field. All right, we'll be back with more right after this. Thank you for visiting me in my messy basement. If you want to be a guest on the program, by all means, send an email to neilsmessybasement@mtbs3d.com. We'll be catching up again soon. Thank you for watching.